Sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, friends, neighbors, comrades, all citizens of the world, wherever you're going, wherever you've been, and wherever you're at, we welcome you to the Live from the Heartland show here on YouTube. New episodes air every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Time with individual interviews posted throughout the following week. I'm your host, Michael James, encouraging you to take the chain from the brain, to get back in the people's game, because it's time to move from the lower level to the higher, from the shallower to the deeper, from the one-sided to the many, and from the abstract to the concrete. So, without further ado, let's get it on. Okay, here we go. Welcome all you citizens of the world. It is the day after the election here in the United States, and the outcome was not what any of us on this panel today expected. I think I would speak for all of us, and I'm talking Katy Hogan, Thom Clark, and Don Rose, that this election is certainly a challenge to our optimism and our love about our country. We woke up to a decision that Donald Trump has regained the White House. The Senate is now in the hands of Republicans, and we are not yet sure about the status of the House of Representatives, but we hold out hope that the Democrats will have a majority there. So a lot of people appear to have voted not in their self-interest in the traditional way, which would be their wages, their health care, their housing, et cetera, but they did vote in their self-interest in terms of white supremacy and the position in the hierarchy. It's a sad state of affairs. Every time we've sort of moved to a multiracial democracy, the Republicans come back with a little bit more of white supremacy. So with all that said, I'm going to turn it over for some opening remarks from each of our guests. Once again, that's Thom Clark, Katy Hogan, both of whom are not only regular participants in the show, but are producers and sometimes co-hosts, and our good friend and regular commentator, Don Rose, who goes way back with elections, and hopefully he might have some knowledge about previous elections that give us hope. Okay, with that said, let's start with Thom Clark.
Well, I feel like feeding off of your opening comments, Michael, and asking Don quickly, what do you think our chances are in the House, which may be decided by the time this show airs this weekend, but you know, what are our chances there as you look at the numbers?
Well, they don't look very good to me now, but you know, things are subject to a lot of flip-flops, so I would leave it open, but I am not optimistic about the House.
Okay. I'm feeling mostly sad this morning, kind of beyond shocked. I'm really concerned for people I know who will suffer under this new regime that we have to figure out, you know, how to live with. I think we can talk later about how do we form alliances with folks we've been trouble having a conversation with, because we obviously have this big split in this country right now that we have to deal with. But I found myself also reminiscing about the morning after a certain election in November 1972, where I had worked vigorously on the west side of the 44th Ward in 6 precincts that had been carved out recently from the Republican 47th Ward, and we won it for McGovern 52-48, and I couldn't believe the results coming in from the rest of the country, and the next morning still couldn't believe it. You know, we're in the throes still of anti-Vietnam stuff, and here we were electing this crook again, and somehow we survived that, and Reaganomics and the Bushies, and we will, I hope, resist through this one and come out better on the other end. And we have 2 years to change Congress, which might be one thing in our favor, but I'm curious what the rest of you feel about the debacle last night. You put in a lot of time with Operation Swing State, Katy. How are you feeling the morning after a quarter of a minute?
I feel like shit. I hate it. I don't know what to say, quite frankly. And I told Michael that this morning. I haven't done enough looking at the numbers and to see, what Don just referred to in terms of what's left to hope for congressionally. But I tend to agree with him with what little I did see, that they've pulled off a trifecta. And we simply have to acknowledge that and go, what did we do or what did we not do? I was part of, as you said, Thom, Operation Swing State, which was an elegant effort out of Chicago and environs. The suburban team was also part of it this time. This was the brainchild of actually Jan Schakowsky's many years of her habit of hiring a couple of us to put in place a system whereby we bring Chicago canvassers to either out of district to, say, Lauren Underwood. By the way, Lauren Underwood make it?
Looks like it.
Yes, she did.
Thank God. But we went when she first ran, we did a lot of work out there. We did a lot of work that same year for Sean Caston. 2 years later, we did the same for Eric Sorensen, who I guess is also pulling it out. And in other years, went out of state. And I know Thom and Michael, did you canvass for Obama in 2008 somewhere else, like Indiana or no?
No, I didn't.
Well, that he really pulled off the initial big time, leave the state, stay in supporter housing, become an Uber canvasser, and he won. But he also had incredible energy and support from young people that year who were adept at the new systems that came in when he ran for president. And I'm talking Van, and which revolutionized how we organized and how we were able to communicate with the organization. And
what is the VAN, just so people who may not know?
Voter Activation Network, and it's a software that registered voters are dumped into the system and then kept records on, which gives some people the willies, but if it's properly used, it's all about organizing for electoral victories. In addition, since then, we've got the minivan, which is something that comes in your phone, and you walk around instead of a clipboard full of papers shuffling through and getting wet when you're in the rain and all manner of discomfort. It's all on the phone, and it syncs the information immediately, so no one has to go through and rewrite the results that you got at the door. It's an incredible tool. Having said all that, the thing was, we knocked on 250,000 doors in Wisconsin and Michigan. 250,000 doors. We had 10,000 or more canvassers. Actually, I think those numbers weren't complete because they were out there before election day. I've been to a lot of places in Wisconsin and Michigan over the last 3.5 months, and worked with an incredible amount of people. There was an outpouring of volunteers like I have never seen, quite frankly, and many of them who had never ever canvassed in their lives, which gave me much joy. Okay. To see all these people, all ages. So it wasn't always saying, okay, great, the young people are coming forward. There's a lot of people my age and in between. So I did go to some rural turfs. And I did talk to people who were in red places. I have a lot of different questions and reactions, and they're not thought out yet. So I apologize. I think, there's some...
Well, we'll have you back on as you develop them, because we always need you to come on the show and share your perception and what you're thinking about. How about you, Don? You got any right off the top thoughts about everything?
Well, I have a few. My immediate concern, obviously, is, and I can't come up with an answer until we see more information, is how badly the Democratic coalition is deteriorating. This strikes me as it may not be a one-off here for one reason or another. There are certain questions that will never properly be pulled or answered. I believe that racism and sexism still played a major, significant part. People talk about voting against their own interests. Yes, but some of the defections from the Democratic coalition are concerning to me. It's clear that there was defections from Latinos that were significant. It was pointed out several areas in Pennsylvania where the final numbers aren't in yet, but it seemed that a couple of counties where the Democrats had done much better were losing, and probably because of the Latino defections, which we've been hearing about. Now, how badly this is going to stay, we don't know, but it could be part of a significant direction. I can't answer whether it's a direction or just peculiar to this, but it's of concern. Similarly, it's very clear that there were defections due to the Gaza war. It pointed out a couple of places where normally Democratic voting Arab populations clearly switched and went to Trump. I think the town of Dearborn, Michigan went for Trump. First time in.
It did. And you know who else got a lot of votes there was Jill Stein. I think she got 20% over there in Dearborn.
Yeah. So now, how is that going to play out? We have obviously made Netanyahu very happy, and we have to see how this plays out. We may be in a very significant rupture on this issue. I don't see where we get those Arab and Muslim votes back. Certainly, there'll be a reorganization of the Democrats. Now, in Illinois, as far as I can tell, there were not any significant defections. We protected the one really dubious or controversial Senate race, in the 17th district, and everybody voted in the Chicago area. All of the incumbent Congress people won with their 65% of the city or county. They're all within the same range, except, of course, the 6th district. But he still won substantially with 55% of the vote, as far as we can see now. So let's a long way around how badly the Democratic coalition is damaged. At one point, the Republican coalition was badly damaged, and they came back with an even more negative base, an even more negative leader, I should say. I'm very concerned about heaven knows what he might do if he, I don't expect him. I don't expect Trump to start executing everything he said he was going to do on day one, but it's a serious problem. Are we really going to put health care in the hands of Robert Kennedy Jr.? Just horrendous things to think about. And will that create any backlash within the Trump coalition? So a lot of things up in the air. All I can say is fundamentally it's still race and sex, gender, if you will. And I don't know how what might change that other than another candidate. The only flaw that I saw in, or turnoff that I saw in her candidacy, if I'm trying to analyze how much it was her, was her strategic or otherwise inability to separate herself from Joe Biden.
I think one of the things that, Michael, you left out of your opening reasons why, and people voting against their own, people underestimate the misogyny in our country. It's deep.
Clearly.
I can't tell you how many people said, she doesn't know anything, she's stupid, I'll never vote for that stupid lady. And that, of course, all came from men, but I know some women who are also misogynistic as well. Self-loathing, I guess, going on. But I'm going to be very interested to look at turnout across the nation. Do we have a turnout figure, Don? Have you seen, or Thom? Any?
The total turnout looks lower than the last election, but we haven't got the final numbers in.
Right.
It looks like at the moment that looks like Trump may have an actual national numerical majority, but so much comes in from California so late. We don't know that yet, but the numbers right now appear to me to be somewhat down from 2020.
I was just going to say, I think that it was down from the start. I mean, early on, and when the election returns started coming in, Democrats just didn't quite turn out as many people in each area, which points to different constituencies that fell from or didn't participate as we would have liked in the Democratic coalition. And I think one of the things that we have to look at is, you had 53% of Latinos voted for Harris. White people probably went for the other guy, for Trump, a whole lot more. And white women, who I think the Democrats were banking on a lot around abortion, did not come through for the Democrats. While the abortion amendments and ballot measures in a lot of states were approved, some got a vote, like in Florida, got like 57%, but still lost because the Republicans kind of have a way of having minority control. They define what wins. In this case, the abortion ruling in Florida got 57% of the vote, but lost. And I'm not sure how across.
Right.
Yeah, they needed 60. I'm just not sure how white women and white people in general voted, but apparently they did not come out in support of our second woman for president candidate. Well, more if we go further back, but Shirley Chisholm ran. But we've had a situation now where we've had two women favored slightly or more to win the election and losing, which probably says something about the consciousness of men and some of the women in the country.
Right. And unfortunately, just like the question of race, no one quite admits that. People who are not going to vote for her fundamentally because she was a woman will find any one of 20 excuses They'll say it was inflation. They'll say she didn't separate herself from Biden. They'll give you all sorts of answers rather than acknowledge that they were voting against a woman, just as they might are never going to acknowledge they voted against her because she was black.
I think, I talk to a lot of voters at their doorstep, and I think when I see this result, I feel like a significant, not majority, but a significant little chunk of them smiled at me and lied through their teeth about how they were going to vote.
Going back to that, the turning out the vote in Operation Swing State, I'm wondering if any other state contributed as much effort to bringing along others in other states. I don't know if California people go to Arizona. I know plenty of people went to Philadelphia, but we really kicked it out here in Chicago and beyond, going to Michigan and Wisconsin. And unfortunately, we don't know what's happened yet with Michigan, but we're slightly behind, and we did lose Wisconsin. So I'm kind of really wondering, I know from knowing you, Katy, how much effort you put into this and how many hundreds of people were involved. And we still had this situation where our side did not come through.
Well, I know we're going to go to a break shortly, so I just would say, I think probably Wisconsinites don't want to maybe see a Chicagoan on their steps, or they want to see someone that they've seen for the last 2 years rather than just for the last 3 or 4 months. There's, again, we're still all in PTSD at this moment. So, or at least I am, and I can't be very analytical or rational, I guess. I'll wait till we come back.
No, you're doing fine. It's a rough situation that faces us, and it's not just the presidency. We've lost senators. We're not sure about the House. We still have a Supreme Court, which the next president, unless
not for long, not for long. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm sort of hoping that Biden can do some stuff before he leaves office. And I did have one question which we can address when we come back from the break, that Sherrod Brown lost the Senate seat in Ohio, but because Vance is now going to be the vice president, there will be an election in Ohio for another senator. And I'm wondering if Sherrod Brown can run for that seat or not. We're going to take a short musical break for all of our outlets to pump up their name, whether that be WLUW, Lumpen Radio, CAN TV, or youtube.com/Heartland Media. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk more about the election, the ramifications, and what we as concerned citizens can do and will do going forward. Be right back here on the left end of your dial.
Shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of November 9th. We're talking about the election and its aftermath and going forward. I'm here with Thom Clark, Katy Hogan, and Don Rose. I'm Michael James. And we are here, well, 3 of us are here in the 49th Ward, Very Blue. We're in Very Blue, Chicago. We're in Blue, Illinois. Thank heaven for all of that. But we have some significant challenges ahead of us now that we have really lost this election. I had going out from the last half, I had asked about whether Sherrod Brown would be able to run for Vance's Senate seat. I don't know if anyone has a quick answer. If not, we'll just let that go. Anybody got any?
There is nothing to block his running. He's not under any limitations. He can win and lose and win and lose as he goes. I think I doubt that he would run again after this. You know, a long time back, he was my candidate for president. Yeah. Backed out of it, but no, there was nothing would stop him from running. But I frankly doubt that he would try. But who knows what's going to happen in 2 years?
I do want to repeat something I think I raised. The role of the ongoing barrage of negativity, lies, and misinformation that the Trump campaign put out. Anyone want to comment on that, and also maybe weave it into the role of the media? How about you, Thom?
Well, there's already been a lot of self-criticism, I'll say, about how journalists and the media they work for or freelance for, as fewer of them have newsrooms to report to. Our style of telling both sides, of bringing one side to the equivalence of the other, has really harmed civic discourse in our country, as one side piles on one lie and fable after another. And, particularly in referencing the rural-urban divide, unless we go camping or have been involved with driveway-to-driveway canvassing in a rural area on gravel roads, we don't have a real appreciation for where some of that divide is coming from. I referred the last couple of months to the politics of grievance. And that's also been covered a bit by the media, but it tends to put folks who are aggrieved at how the economy or the dissolution of their families or schools that don't perform have given them things to be aggrieved about. How that's also a divide, a fence to understanding those of us on the other side. So I'm frustrated by how the media or our own forms of communication with powerful tools of social media might help reshape how we talk about some of these things to each other.
Let me ask Don what you think the ramifications of this will be for the war in Ukraine. The word in various headlines was Russians were jubilant, and I assume that's Putin and some of his circles, as well as Europeans putting on a brave face. Any comments on that, Don?
Yeah, well, I'm deeply concerned about that. First of all, even as it stands, the war in Ukraine is turning, I think, to a significant level against Ukraine, unfortunately. And I don't know if the present level of support were to maintain itself or even increase a little bit, I don't know whether it would reverse that trend. So that's the starting point. And I fear that Putin has such a good friend in the White House. He's got his candidate in, and Mr. Trump is certainly going to want to exploit how good buddies he is with Putin. So I really think that the situation is going to deteriorate much further. I don't know how fast. There's still some support among Republicans in general for Ukraine. So the Republicans are split on this, but given the lesson of the kind of leadership Trump has shown, I'm not sure you're going to find that many Republicans willing to stand up and be counted against it. So I fear for that situation very greatly. just as in the other war-torn part of our planet, Netanyahu has his candidate in, and looks like he's going to be given free rein. Whether that would bring an expanded war would bring our soldiers in, I don't know, because I think Trump has spoken against war so much. I doubt that he would join a Middle Eastern war as easily as Biden might have. So the foreign entanglements of our two war-torn areas is very depressive to me here. And we've got to see how people are going to line up on that. I think there's a lot of sentiment in this country to stop spending so much money on that war. And how it's going to affect Israel, I think it's only strengthening Netanyahu's hand here. So there's going to be a lot more suffering there. There's going to be a lot more suffering in the Palestinian areas, and there's going to be a lot more suffering in Ukraine. And I feel horrible about that, almost as horrible as I feel about what's going to happen here.
You know, one of the things around that, though, is also the blowback here in the United States. I think we saw a number of younger people clearly voice their opposition to the U.S.'s position on the Middle East these days. I think that we see evidence of the Palestinians turning against the Biden coalition when we look at the results up in Dearborn. And I think that an impediment to the growth of the Democratic Party is that position on Gaza, because so many young people are really clearly opposed to it. And I think we're going to see massive demonstrations around the Palestine issue in the months to come. I would bet on that.
I wouldn't bet against you on that issue. I look for that to be inflamed very soon.
You know, another headline I saw, and it was in the Washington Post, and I do confess to not having canceled my subscription, which is pretty cheap as a teacher at DePaul. I've thought about getting rid of it. Right now, I wanted to follow a little news, and I might still get rid of my subscription. But one of their headlines today was a stinging defeat for the American left. And I'm wondering if we think that's true. Do we think that we could have run a campaign that was more amenable to leftist positions, whether it be the wars, whether it be expanding health care, et cetera, or do you think it's, they did the right thing? I think they left some stuff out that didn't bring in the left as much. What is anyone's thought on that?
I don't think that anybody is at all informed or correct when they use the word the American left.
Good point.
The left, what is it? Is it the Antifas that the MAGAites all like to rail against? I mean, they've only come out a few times to show their colors, and they're always the minority of any large demonstration. And what is the American left? If the American left had power, the Kamala Harris campaign would not have had Spanish literature for the first 2-3 months of it. Okay. The Democratic Party is weak in general. It's strong here because we have our own neighbors and we know the people who are part of it, and it's our party. But we don't know what it looks like in other places. And Americans in general, I feel, because I feel this sort of myself all my life, are not into partisan politics. They enter politics when it concerns them, as we all know. And yet, when you have people voting against their own interests, and you've got Latinos voting to the extent that they did for a guy who said he'll deport them, what is that? Where do we go with that? I do believe that some real soul searching has to happen on those who are running the Democratic Party. They did a better job than I think they've ever done, almost in terms of nationwide stuff. Yes, there were a lot of people coming from California into Arizona and Nevada. I don't know how many comparatively. Yes, there were a lot of people come from New York, New Jersey into Pennsylvania. But we lost North Carolina. We lost Georgia. I actually sent messages through an intermediary saying the candidate should be saying more positive things. She shouldn't be drumming what we all know about her opponent and repeating his negative statements and positions, et cetera, and rather saying, what did she find out as she ran her 100-day campaign? Did she notice how much Americans went to Americans' aid when the hurricanes hit? Did she talk about how Chicago brought in the migrants who were chaotically sent to us from the Texas governor and just went to work finding shelter, food, clothing, and jobs for these people? You know, one of the statements I did get from somebody at the door was from a young MAGAite, lovely young woman with a cross around her neck, saying, and it's just so sad, she said, how those migrants are killing all those people in Chicago. To which I responded, you know, in Chicago, we kill our own. We don't really need the migrants to enter into that. But, you know, that was a flip answer. But how do we contradict what are absolute falsehoods? I did it at the door time and time again. I got told incredibly fallacious ideas. You know, the one about the new law in California that allows for a baby to be born full term and to be set over there and that they have 28 days to let it go or find a different solution. You know, and luckily I was talking to that lady for a while and said, really, look at me and know that no Americans would ever allow for a law like that to happen. But there's a mindset, and I'm not really sure how. I do think local is important, and that we build our strength. We continue to align with our neighbors and our regions, if you will, in issues that affect us directly. Here in 49, we elected Ebony DeBerry. Thank God. She was our candidate for the school district. She was the only African-American running in this district, which is very large, the new boundaries of the school district, for a system that is, 70% kids of color. And so we've got the Vallis slate running against the school board slate. Those kind of divisions are so harmful to any forward progress. And so a lot of people are rightfully closed off at what they deem, in the big general sense, politics. So we're back to politics being a dirty word. And I'm afraid that's going to be an uphill battle. For those of us who know you can, if you have the right approach, you can win in politics every once in a while. This is going to be a hard one for people to get over.
All right, who would like to go ahead, Don?
If I may, agree that this was a significant defeat for the American left. If the American left is against xenophobia and actively, and the American left is against racism and is against sexism, this was a rebuke. And we found even the candidate who started out 8 years ago, or 4 years ago, running as a strong progressive, going back on all of those progressive issues, such as Medicare for all and so on, and retreating on issues like the border wall. If we see what happened with the welcoming of immigrants here that were sent to us by, and an interesting tactic by the governor of Texas. We found that there became a competitive sense with the indigenous, the local African American groups that felt that they were suddenly being cheated out of money or treats of whatever kind. So that helped break up what would have been a staunch left position of brotherhood between these migrants and the local African American or Latino communities here. So yes, we don't have a real left here working anymore. We don't have a socialist party that is anywhere near competitive as we did generations ago in New York or Milwaukee. But we also have this other problem I wanted to speak to, and the isolation of messaging until we solve this matter of individuation of messaging and everyone can become his or her own announcer, progressive leader, or right-wing leader, or what have you. When the Joe Rogan podcast is the most listened to thing in the most listened to podcast in America, and I don't know how much any of you have ever listened to it, but I don't listen to it. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but the presence of the internet and the general split in messaging around the whole country and around the whole world continues. And until we solve that, it's going to be very hard to communicate a message of healing in any direction because ain't nobody listening to us but us and to them but them.
So let's shift a little bit. That started us off. Let's talk about what we think we need to do going forward. And I'm going to hit up on Thom first. Just some thoughts. We have a few minutes left, and I'd like to hear what you are people I trust and I look to for advice and information. Any thoughts you might have on what a dazed and saddened populace out there, our people, so to speak, what they might be doing in the days, weeks, months, and years to come?
Well, I think, first of all, to pick up on what Katy said, we have to start local and continue building our local bases so that when local elections, but also the organizing that needs to happen around issues in between elections can continue to try to push us incrementally forward. And it may be in the near term that means a lot more resistance type activities. But I think it's also time to be listening, not only to friends and family, but others we might have not been talking to or have blocked from social media. We're going to need to give a lot of family and friends support and some healing time in the near term to get over this major defeat of what seems our core values and even our personhood no longer being recognized by a swath of our fellow neighbors. And I congratulate Katy and all those who knocked on so many doors, because I think we can also look at that as a base to move forward from, and in areas that may not have had much of attention. So tactically, we need to find a way to create more purple areas, I guess, in our region and country, and work on that messaging, because I think we haven't figured out the right way to talk amongst each other and to the other side.
I'm reminded of something I wrote years ago called The Politics of Affirmation. And, there's a lot of against in politics, but kind of looking for a way that we could reach out to people and find points of unity and affirm those things that we think are good, stand up to those that we're opposed. It's kind of taking a positive view about how we deal with people out in the world to bring them around to a position of wanting to make it a better world that's more in line with some of the things that we think a little bit. Katy or Don, do you want to make any comment here on suggestions for people who are going to have to deal with this in the days, weeks, and years to come?
I agree that we have to consolidate our local politics and start building or rebuilding as necessary. I think we have to finally listen to Ben Wickler, for example, who is a very solid guy, a wonderful organizer. I thought he was going to win his state, and ask him what he thinks of the issues of people from Illinois coming in. Was this a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Were they ignored? Were they resented? Were they appreciated? So we have to find out things like that. It's to answer Katy's question there. And it's obviously, as they say, all politics is local. We've got to get our asses in gear on a local basis. And we have to find a way of cracking through these isolated media. Just to take one little mistake, I mean, it would have made the difference in this whole thing. But Kamala Harris refused to go on Rogan's show. She gave such difficult restrictions that they couldn't possibly accept it. That was a mistake. It would not have turned things around, but it was a way of getting in touch with a huge audience that we're otherwise not even reaching. I'm sure there are people who listen to Rogan who don't even know what Kamala looks like or sounds like, and all they know is what they've heard about her.
Yeah, what was amazing going door to door, particularly actually in poorer neighborhoods in Muskegon, in a couple other areas that I was, people didn't even know who was running. I mean, people in this country do not want to know. They have other things on their minds, or they're trying to drug their minds into submission. I was in neighborhoods that were clearly decimated by drug use. It was the saddest thing I ran into. We do not have people who want at this point or have the habit of one, trusting politics, two, practicing politics just as naturally as some of us do. And we've known that for a while, that we were the minority, but we really got to stop being the minority in terms of having comfort with registering people to vote, expecting that people are registered, acting on it, communicating. I totally agree with Don about the isolated silos of journalism, quote unquote. It has broken us up. I mean, the change from listening to Walter Cronkite, everyone from sea to shining sea at the same time, is a really serious, miss that, I don't know, that I think that's right, that we need to address that. And we need to address our young people. We need to engage our young people. It's way more than we do, way more than we have.
You got 10 seconds apiece. Any cheers you want to put out or any last little bit of information? There's Katy. She's giving the peace sign. Thom's giving the peace sign. And Don is giving the peace sign. I'm going to give the fist and the peace sign. I think we can make a difference. We're all young enough and, healthy enough and enthused enough to go forward, no matter where it's thick or thin. things do change and we can move from a lower level to a higher. Let's hope it happens in our lifetime once again. I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Young and healthy.
Right on. I want to thank my producers. That would be Lynn Orman, Tom Clark, Katy Hogan, my engineer, Hal James, my guest, Tom Clark, Katy Hogan, and Don Rose. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking more politics. We'll maybe weave in a little culture to lighten it up after all these weeks of getting ready for the big event that is now over. We are going to deal with the ramifications. So you do good in the world. I do good in the world. Together, we all can do good in the world, and we can make a real difference. Onward, all power to the people. We want to thank you for watching the Live from the Heartland show. New episodes air every Friday beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time. Episodes air each following Thursday on CAN TV, 9 p.m. in Sweet Home Chicago on Channel 21 or streaming everywhere else at cantv.org. Audio episodes go live on WLUW each Saturday, 9 a.m. on the left end of your dial at 88.7 FM or streaming everywhere worldwide at WLUW.org. They're available on Apple and Spotify podcasts by looking up Live from the Heartland on either platform, and are also broadcast on Lumpen Radio each Friday at 9 a.m. on 105.5 FM and streaming at lumpenradio.com. I'm Michael James, and I'm glad to have been your host. Until next time, remember, do good in the world because the world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Over and out.
Gone to limb. Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing